Okay, so we're going to get started. Thank you everyone for joining this second session of our AbSPORU Patient Engagement Learning Series. We're hoping to have these monthly and looking at ways to support patient partners, students, and other early career researchers share their research work. So today we have Sadia, Ahmed, and Sandra Zelinsky of the AbSPORU patient engagement team, sharing their experience and knowledge on preparing and presenting posters for health research conferences. This will be about a 45-minute presentation, and then they'll have 15 minutes at the end of the presentation for a Q&A period. They'll also be sharing their email addresses, so if you aren't able to ask your question during this session, please feel free to follow up afterwards. As well, we'll be recording the session and sharing the link to the recording afterwards. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sadia and Sandra. Thank you.
Thanks, Ingrid, and thanks for the introductions. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So as Ingrid mentioned, we're going to be talking today about preparing and presenting posters for health research conferences. So we're just going to jump right in because we have a lot to cover. Okay. So we want to start off with a land acknowledgement, and we would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 in southern Alberta. And the city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. So if we could just take a moment and share a little bit about yourselves in the chat box, maybe where your name, where you're calling from, your role in health research. So whether you're a patient research partner, a student, academic researcher, etc. And have you ever done a poster presentation before? And so while you're adding your comments in the chat box, I'll just go over today's presentation, and Sadia will keep an eye on the chat box as well, and I'll have a look once I pass the baton over to Sadia. So today we're going to be talking about conferences in general, and we're going to talk about preparing a poster presentation. We're going to share a few templates and examples. Then we're going to talk about what happens at the conference and what happens after the conference. So let's jump into talking a little bit about conferences. So why do we have conferences, and why present posters at conferences? So poster presentations provide an opportunity for researchers to share their findings with a broader audience, facilitating the dissemination of new knowledge and insights. These presentations also allow researchers to connect with peers, experts, and potential collaborators. They provide an opportunity to engage in discussion around their work, which can lead to new connections and future opportunities. Presenting research in a poster format invites feedback from attendees, which can be beneficial for refining ideas, methodologies, and interpretations. It encourages dialogue that can enhance the research process. Posters allow researchers to present their work in a visually engaging manner, making it easier for attendees to grasp key concepts quickly. This format can effectively highlight important data and findings. And then preparing and presenting a poster helps to develop important skills such as summarizing research succinctly, designing effective visual aids, and communicating work to diverse audiences. Obviously, there's other aspects of research that gets presented in different ways at conferences. There's workshops, there's oral presentations, but today we're focusing on poster presentations. So we're going to talk about how to find a conference that you can attend and selecting one that would be most appropriate. So identifying conference opportunities is a little bit of a process of research and selecting a conference that aligns with your field of interest and the specific focus of your work to maximize visibility, relevance, and learnings. Your research team or perhaps academic lead may be a great resource to help to get you started. You can also use Google to search for conferences in your interested field. For patient research partners, it may also be specifically directly related to your lived experience where you have that interest to attend those types of health research conferences. You'll want to consider cost associated of attending a conference and whether or not you have financial support or can afford to attend. So it's a little bit of research up front to find these opportunities. Sometimes the opportunities can fall in your lap because you may be working with other researchers who bring up a conference and say, hey, would you like to co-present or present at this conference? Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about submitting an abstract. So just on the right-hand side, we just want to provide a visual of what an abstract looks like and kind of the length. They're not really all that long. Usually each conference will have sort of a template or guidelines to follow to complete an abstract. And each section, so if it's an introduction and the methods, maybe is like 150, 200 words long. So in total, they might be upwards to 500 words approximately. Understand the abstract submission process to familiarize yourself with the guidelines and timelines for submitting abstracts. Each conference will have different guidelines and different timelines as well. And you really want to make sure that your submission aligns with the conference objectives. So if you're, let's say, attending a gastroenterology conference, it might not be the conference to submit a cardiovascular care research study to, for example. So, and then craft a compelling abstract that's relevant to the conference, or crafting that abstract can really enhance your chances of acceptance. Okay, so as part of, once you submit an abstract to a conference, it will go through a review committee process where these individuals come together to review all the abstracts that are submitted in the different categories, so poster presentations, oral presentations, etc. And the reviewers will select the abstracts for posters, for oral, etc. And then once they've gone through this process of reviewing, they will send an email to all the people who have submitted abstracts to let them know whether or not the abstract has been accepted or not accepted. Often there's a call out for abstracts on conference websites. Approximately, again, this varies from conference to conference, about 6 to 9 months in advance. And then often they let you know about approximately 2 months in advance, or 2 to 3 months in advance, whether or not your abstract has gotten accepted. This allows a little bit of time to plan for travel, etc. Okay, so once your abstract has been accepted, you're going to want to go through the registration process on the conference website to and they'll usually prompt you in an email, your acceptance email. It'll prompt you to now go ahead and register. And so you'll want to visit the conference website, create an account, select the registration type, pay. There's usually some conferences are free to register for, but often there's a registration fee as well. And then you'll receive a confirmation email afterwards. And so just understanding the registration process for attendees, which is including clock costs, travel logistics, and other required information such as your name, address, and affiliations before sort of starting that registration process. Okay, and then there may be an opportunity to get some support or travel scholarships. This can be for all. This could be for, here's sorry, on the right-hand side, there's an example of a travel scholarship through a conference website. So this one has scholarships for people coming from developing countries, students or new investigators, and patient research partners. This information can usually be found on the conference website, and you would normally, you'll have to go through an application process, and that varies from conference to conference. So for example, this is through the ISACOL conference, the International Society of Quality of Life Conference. And there's sort of a template that they have for people to go through to apply for the conference. So filling out your name, kind of almost like a bit of a Google form. And additionally, for example, with this conference specifically, which isn't necessarily the case for all conferences, they require a letter of support from an academic researcher who attends that conference as well. So it's a bit of a nuance. Sometimes conferences require that you have the direct lived experience. If you're a patient research partner attending a conference, to attend that conference and get the scholarship. So there'll be different guidelines, and you just have to go through and read through them and figure those parts out. I'm going to pass the baton over to Sadia, and she's going to talk about preparing poster presentations.
Thanks, Sandra. Next slide, please.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess before you, when you're looking at conferences and once you've kind of accepted a conference presentation, you'll have to think about who is that conference targeted towards, who's going to be that audience for that poster presentation. So in health research, we often do work with various individuals or share that research with different groups. This may include community members, patients or patient groups, researchers, healthcare providers, policymakers, industry, and other organizations like nonprofit groups, and many more. I'm sure you can come up with some other examples as well. And so based on what the conference is directed towards and who the people will be who will be attending that conference, you'll want to cater and design your poster in a way that will, be specific to your audience. So there's also another question to think about is, what is the best format to present to your audience? So for a lot of conferences, main formats include the oral presentation, which is around, it can vary, but for some conferences it's around 10 to 15 minutes that you give a presentation with a PowerPoint slide deck, and then you answer questions from the audience. Or some conferences also have this thing called lightning talks, which is more of a shorter oral presentation. It might be 3 to 5 minutes long. You're giving more of that, pitch, or you might have heard the term 3-minute thesis, where people present, a really high level overview or summary of their work, and then they attend to audience questions. Then there's the poster presentation, which is the focus of our presentation for today, is where you create a visually appealing, poster to summarize your project, and then you present it in wherever. It's more of in a casual setting where people come to your poster. You can prepare a 1 to 2 minute spiel about your poster presentation, or a 30-second pitch, just the main findings, and then you answer questions from individuals. When you're creating a poster presentation specifically, we want to create a poster that adheres to the submission guidelines. So this includes ensuring that you meet the guidelines of that conference, where they will note exactly the dimensions of the poster that you'll need to print, what format, and whether it be presented online, in person, or both. So ensuring that you get that information from the conference organizers. You also, when you're, drafting the poster, it will be on a PowerPoint template, and you'll want to, ensure that you leave enough time for your co-authors to also review the poster. Usually when we design poster presentations or any presentations, it's really a collaborative effort. So someone usually takes the lead in starting off, and then they pass it off to their co-authors, who will review the poster presentation, offer their feedback, or add to it. And so depending on how many people are involved, you will want to ensure that you would leave enough time for the others to review. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to go over the different sections that should be included or can be included within a poster presentation. Each conference can be a little bit different, right? We'll highlight some of the main ones sections that are typically included in a poster. And then depending on the conference that you attend, there might be additional sections or sections that they prioritize. So for all the conferences that I've been to, they've asked for, say, an introduction or background section. So here you're really ensuring that you talk about the purpose of the study. So why are we doing this? Maybe you can add in a sentence or two about background literature, what is known about the topic, and then you end off in your introduction background session with the aim of the project. In all the tips that we're going to share today, I think the main thing we want to highlight is that a poster presentation should be, something that's visually appealing and simple. And so in all these sections, you don't want it to be wordy or, cluttered. You want it to ensure that you have few main points within each section that will definitely capture like the gist of your project. So the next slide, I'm going to share an example from one of our poster presentations that Sandra and I have done before, from a project looking at cardiovascular care where we engaged patients, clinicians, and health, and researchers in identifying priorities for cardiovascular care. So for this instance here, we have that two statements about why it's important to work together. And then we have our key objectives of what took part in that research project, which was to identify priorities, design projects that can include meaningful roles, and to create an advisory panel of patients and caregivers. In the methods section, this one's also very important section of your poster is people will want to know how exactly you did your project. So how was the study performed? What was the research design that you used? What was the setting? If you had participants, how did you recruit participants? You want to ensure that you have a clear description of all the processes. How did you collect your data? How did you analyze it? But be creative in the way you present it too. So it doesn't always have to be a wordy like paragraph about how you did what you did. It could be, you could use figures, you could use tables to really showcase your methods. And so the next slide will show some examples how we did for our study. So we have in the top part, we have a description of what kind of research project it was. So it was a qualitative, descriptive, patient-oriented research project. But then because our project ended up being like a workshop, so we, bringing together different like patient partners, caregivers, clinician researchers, we want to show a flow of how those workshop days worked. And so that's why you could use tables or figures to show that. And so here you can see we had day 1 of our workshop and then day 2, and then we were able to get the top 10 priorities from the end of day 2. For this specific project, we really wanted to highlight the unique aspect of working together. And so we gave more space to the method section. And that's something that you'll want to also think about for your project is which aspect of your project do you think you'll need to give more space to, depending on, what's more important, what's more interesting. So here we want to, include actual pictures from the day of the workshop and to make it more visually appealing and to also highlight the fact that this really resulted in a patient and caregiver advisory panel or council that, worked together for a number of years. And so here you have some pictures from the actual workshop day of working together in, in groups, and then the picture of everyone as well from that group. As for the results, it will vary, right? For a qualitative project, you will want to describe, say, the demographic details of your participants if you collected that, the main themes identified, supporting quotes. For quantitative projects, you'll want to, highlight figures, charts, bar graphs, whatever really works for your results. If you're doing, say, a lab-based science project, you want to highlight, you want to showcase how you ran your experiments or your interventions. And so here again, one thing that we'll want to keep like being repetitive about is be creative in how you present that, because poster presentation will be something that someone's going to walk through, and you'll want to have something that's eye-catching to them and will make them want to stop. And so for us, it's more of a qualitative project. And so the next slide, we share some examples of how we did that. Is we, highlighted who the members of the group were, so some demographic details. And we also use tables specifically because we were identifying priorities for cardiovascular care and also some solutions. Or some barriers to patient-oriented research and some solutions, and then also some priorities. So we used tables to showcase them. As for the discussion section, now this isn't something that is always a dedicated section of your poster presentation. Sometimes what people will do is they will combine it with the results section, or they'll combine it with their conclusion section. So it's really about how much space you have for your poster and how you can, maybe talk about with some of these elements. For instance, in a typical discussion, when you're writing about it in a paper, you would try to make sense of your findings. How does it add to the body of literature? How does it compare to existing research? Does your research add anything new or add more evidence to what you know? And so some people, they will add a one-liner in their results section or in their conclusion section about that. They might add some strengths or limitations of their project or future directions as well, something that would be interesting to, follow up on. And then the conclusions, usually this is also a brief section. You clearly state the main conclusion, provide an explanation of the importance and relevance of the study reported, or you grab some of those details from the discussion into your conclusion section. And so an example of that is in our next slide, where for this specific poster, we have only 3 points. We talk about what the main conclusions are and what it can inform. So we wanted to let people know that it can inform the design of other initiatives to engage patients in patient-oriented research. Now, this is one thing that I want to highlight as well for a poster presentation. So this doesn't always happen for every conference, but some conferences do have a judging portion where they may assign judges to your poster presentation. And so for this one is an example of a score sheet from that. So here, the Owerco ACRI Center Conference that's coming up actually next week for our summer students, they are asked to, prepare a 2 to 3 minute overview of their abstract for their judge. And then they would be asked questions afterwards from their judge as well. While this might not be the case for every single conference, I thought it would be really interesting to note what people might score you on, because that's exactly how someone who is not judging you, but is, an attendee of a conference might also be looking for. For instance, the oral portion, which is having enthusiasm, ability to capture the audience's attention, the speaker providing a clear and logical presentation of their work, and avoiding scientific jargon as well. As well as looking at the poster content and quality. So whether your material is strong, is it well summarized, do you have specific sections that are necessary, such as the background, methods, results, conclusions, the appearance of the poster. So that's what some people will also look at is it clear? Is it organized? Is it visually appealing? Is it a strongly effective presentation and layout of the poster? And is it easy to read? So you'll want something that, can be easy to read. And are you able to answer well to the questions as well with a sense of confidence? I'll be sharing some templates and examples of other poster presentations that Sandra and I have presented in the past, or of others that we've come across, to give you an idea of that there's really not one way to do a poster presentation or to make a poster, but rather there's different ways that you can borrow from. For instance, our working together one that I shared snippets of, this is what the final poster, looks together as a whole. The use of visuals, the use of tables, the use of, clear text, something, and nothing that's too wordy throughout the poster. The next example that I have here is, this is another template that I've used in the past, is where I highlighted the main findings right in the middle so that whoever, comes across my poster presentation can exactly read, these are my main findings. And then there's like a figure to highlight the main themes. And then the bars on the left and right have more detail. This is another one too, and one thing to note is that sometimes your research team might have their own branding or template that they would like you to use. And so one of the research teams that we have collaborated with in the past, the Imagine Sport Network, have their own, and then they've also utilized both figures and tables here to showcase their methods and results section. And this is one that Sandra and I have presented in the past too. This was on digital storytelling, and we utilized thumbnails to, showcase that these were the stories that our patient partners worked on during our workshops. And this template was taken from the University of Calgary. And then this one is a separate template. These ones are vertical formats here. And here you'll notice that for these specific posters, they're kind of more infographic styles. And these ones, you'll see here that the researchers highlighted specific keywords to kind of emphasize that was something that they wanted whoever came across their project to look at. We had one question in the chat here that you can definitely use templates from your institution. Our University of Calgary have templates as well. And so Ingrid has put that in the chat. The next template is our University of Calgary template. It's just been formatted according to the patient and community engagement research course, where one of the sections that in that course they ask students to do is have a recommendation section so that it aligns with the results. And so that's another way to do it. The main thing you'll want is ensuring that you have the necessary sections that is required for that conference, that venue. And then also ensuring that your font size is clear as well. So here the guideline or a recommendation is that the font size be much bigger, so around 60 to 70 perhaps. And usually for the font size within the text, so within the poster, I keep it around between 32 to 36 size. So those are just some examples that we pulled from. I'm sure there's many others that you've probably come across, whether you've done poster presentations in the past or you've seen other posters. You could always, follow up with the researcher and ask them if you're at a conference and you really like their template, and they will probably be happy to share it with you. Some logistics to make note of is printing. So if you're attending a conference, say locally in your in the city that you're in, you will probably find a print shop that's available local to you. University of Calgary has their own print shop as well. You'll need to make sure you know the dimensions that you need to take print in. However, if you're traveling, say, outside of your city to a conference, there's decisions that you can make. You can either print it locally at your print shop, bring it with you, or you can find a local printer in the area that you're traveling to. Some print shops might offer even a delivery service to your hotel or conference venue, or you can arrange for pickup at their location. So it's really just some things to keep in mind when it is the responsibility of the poster presenter to print. Some considerations as well when you're traveling with your poster is that often a poster tube can help ensure that your poster doesn't get damaged, as well as that they're a lot likely to go through security checks as well at the airport. So I'm going to hand it over to Sandra now to go over what happens at the conference.
Thanks, Sadia. So when you get to the conference, you've traveled, whether it be in your own city or you're having to fly somewhere, you're going to arrive at the conference. They usually have a schedule that they'll provide you in advance. And part of this schedule, they'll have some allocated times for registration. So there'll be a desk usually at the conference where you can go up and register. They'll have your name already in the system because you registered online earlier on when I talked about actually registering. So they have all your information. And with that information, they'll create a name badge. And sometimes you'll also receive some additional materials. Sometimes they print off like an overview of the schedule or more in depth. I'm finding more and more as we, you know, as we move forward, that some conferences are going paperless, and there might be an app that they, you know, to access the schedule. So the first thing is registration, getting your name badge, and then, you know, and then you're kind of good to go. And so then the other thing you might want to do, and this probably is also done prior to, you'll have access to the schedule, but also keeping track of your schedule. It's busy. There's lots going on at conferences. There's lots of different presentations and sessions and break times for networking, etc. So really going through the schedule, the agenda, and highlighting the sessions that you would like to attend. If you have your own presentations, making sure that those are in your calendar as well, so that you're there at the right time and the right place. So that's part of the planning. It can be overwhelming, kind of going and not having a plan and not knowing where to go. So it is good to kind of go through the schedule and figure out the different sessions that you would like to attend and where you need to be, etc. In an app, it's kind of handy because you can actually click on the presentation that you're interested in attending, and it'll add it to your schedule. And so you can kind of create your own schedule. So that's a nice feature for if you do use the app function and if the conference offers that. Okay, so this is a bit of a summary of everything we've gone over, but this is a sort of a, you know, list of responsibilities of the poster presenter. So there, like I said, there's a lot going on at the conference. You want to make sure that you're organized. So we really covered the first point. Sadia went through all of the preparation. And then we want to really make sure that we're well-versed and comfortable discussing your research topic, methodology, results, and implications. Be prepared to answer questions and engage in discussions about your work. So a little bit of preparation in advance will make the experience more relaxing later on, and engaging and enjoyable. Posters, as Sadia said, can either be printed at home or in the location that you're traveling to. So that's one of the responsibilities of the poster presenter, is to have those posters, the poster or posters printed. Arrive at the designated time and location to set up your poster. Be sure that it is displayed correctly and adheres to any guidelines provided by the conference organizers. So similar to the registration, there'll be a time. You'll get an email with usually a number that they assign to you as a poster presenter. That number coordinates with the spot on the wall that you would post your poster, as well as they'll provide you a time to put your poster up and a time to take your poster down. Usually, but it can vary from conference to conference, usually you'll leave it up for the whole conference and then take it down at the end of the conference before you leave. But sometimes there are some different rules. It depends on the conference. During the designated poster session provided by the conference, you must present at your poster and actively engage with conference attendees. Be approachable and ready to explain your research, answer questions, and discuss its significance. So again, you want to add that to your schedule, your calendar, and make sure that you're there in time and during the time that you're assigned to present a poster. They usually assign a time, like a little block of time, to be at the poster. And sometimes there can be a lot of posters in a poster session. So sometimes what they do is they'll break up those times, and a group of people are designated at, let's say 11 to 11:15. Another group are designated to other time frames, so that it's not all at once. Use this opportunity to network with other conference attendees, exchange contact information, and discuss potential collaborations or feedback on your work. Be mindful of time allocated for discussion. Conference schedules are busy, and once the poster presentation session is over, people usually want to get on to the next session in their agenda. So just to be respectful of everyone's time. Be open to constructive feedback from peers. This can provide valuable insights for future research. Take down your poster, that will be one of your responsibilities, and follow up with individuals who express interest in your work or would like to connect to discuss potential collaborations. So sometimes, and I'll talk about this short, actually, I'll just hold on because I will talk about this in a moment. And I'll also talk about these last two things. So add your presentation to your CV, we'll talk about that. And then also don't forget to get your picture taken with your poster. So this is what kind of a typical or a poster session can look like. So as you can see, lots of posters, lots of people. It can get pretty busy, lots of people to weave in. It can be very crowded. So just to reiterate Sadia's comment about wanting to make sure that your poster is eye-catching, you can just imagine, and I'll post a little video on YouTube that talks about designing posters after we're done, but you really have like 3 seconds to catch people's attention, because as they're walking through that poster hall, you're scanning kind of information titles, something that's going to grab your attention for the things that you're interested in learning about. So, I mean, even here, you look at the title, it looks so small and there's so much information. What is grabbing the attention? Whereas, just at a quick glance, I know this is really, everything looks pretty small, but the title stands out quite a bit more on that second poster as one example. So just, this is all to do with sort of design. And in that YouTube video, it talks about user experience. So the idea of walking through these halls and trying to engage with people and getting as much information as you can in that short period of time. Okay, so once the conference is over, what happens? This is a time to follow up with anyone who might email you, or if you've connected with somebody, say on LinkedIn or other social media platforms. Sometimes people, maybe on X or Twitter, and then you can follow up and have those discussions. So if you do get an email, be sure to follow up with them. So what happens with a lot of conferences is they'll create kind of this abstract book that is like a publication. It remains as part of that conference log. And so it'll look similar to this. This is from one conference where you can actually click on each of these. They remain on their website. You can click on it and it'll open the abstract. So you can still go back later on and learn about someone's work, to read the abstract and see the poster. So some conferences will archive all of this information, and you can cite this as part of you can cite it as part of your CV regardless the presentation. So this is what your citation will look like. You'll want to put conference name, the date that the conference was held, name of or the date you presented, name of presentation, the co-authors that were a part of your presentation, and the type of presentation that it was. So this will go on your CV regardless, but it's also nice to know that that information also may be published. So sometimes you can even do a Google search and pull up your abstract and poster because it's been posted on the conference website. So in conclusion, we want to just reiterate, ensure you have all the poster requirements from the conference organizer. Sometimes it could be font size, it can be the type of font that they want, the size of the poster, all these different things. You just want to make sure that you adhere to those guidelines. There are various ways to structure your research posters, so don't be afraid to be creative with it, and prepare in advance so that you're ready for your big day and you can enjoy it. Personally, I find poster presenting a little less stressful than oral presentation because it's a little bit of a networking, chatting, sharing work. The attendees that come to see your poster might also share a little bit about their work. So it's a little more interactive, whereas, you know, when you do an oral presentation, you're standing on stage and there's an audience, and so it can feel a little bit more intimidating. So poster presentations can be quite fun and interactive. And we have a few links here, and a QR code. I'll just hold that for a few minutes, or not a few minutes, for a few seconds if anyone wants to grab the QR code, which is some of the templates for U Calgary. And then, so I'll give it a second here. And then we'll just go to some questions, and here is our contact information. And I'll stop sharing the slides so we can see everyone or take some questions.